Hi guys, Barry from Copper vs Glass, and today I'm going to be talking about Google and Google services. You may have heard recently that Google have announced Google Now for iOS, which is pretty much one of the major selling points of Android. It's a really cool feature, and they tout it as being information when you need it, not having to ask for it and then get it. So it just kind of gives you information all the time, which is pretty helpful. I found it quite useful in some cases. Now, this being released on iOS does introduce a potential problem. And that is that now you've got so many Google apps on the iOS platform, what incentive do people have to buy Android phones? So if we look at the apps that you have on Android and iOS, I've got my Nexus 4 here. When I go into my Google folder, I've got the Google Calendar and Contacts and Gmail. Now, of course, all of those can be synced to your iPhone very, very easily. Then, of course, you've got Chrome, which is on iOS and does the same thing. It syncs bookmarks and favorites and things like that, so it does the same sort of thing really. And of course the browser experience on iOS is a lot better, it's a lot smoother. Then you've got Google Currents. Google Currents is essentially a news aggregator. You can save things offline, so you can read articles offline, and it's a really, really nice interface. Then of course you've got Google+. I've tried to avoid Facebook recently, so Google+ is what I'm all about at the moment, and I love it for its integration and its interface. Google Maps, of course, is another amazing app that's come to iOS, and I personally think that in terms of design, the Maps app on iOS is a lot better than Android. They've got some really great things going. But of course, you miss out on some features like saving maps offline, which is pretty handy. As Michael talked about in a previous video, you've got Google Music. Now, Google Music, of course, you can stream through your Safari browser, but there is now an app that allows you to cache those songs to your device and listen to them when you're offline, so essentially adding a full offline Google Music experience, which is really, really cool. And then of course you've got YouTube. The YouTube app now is back on iOS, on the iPad as well, and it again is a very good experience. Now with the addition of Google Now, they're introducing a massive part of Android that a lot of people still actually can't even access because their devices, because of certain reasons, can't be upgraded to the latest version and therefore can't get Google Now. So Google is introducing iOS users to something they're not even introducing their own users to. Now that may not be a fault of Google, but it is definitely worth thinking about. So with this addition of all of these applications, what incentive do people have to go to Android and not just stay with iOS and use all these Google apps? Well, the answer is simply what Android is all about, and that's customization. I've got my Nexus 4 here and I love it because it allows me to customize it. I can make it my own device, whereas iOS is still very much in that realm of a grid of icons. It's very stale and sort of set in its way. And that's the great thing about Android, is its customizability and of course the plethora of devices that you can get for them. So when I look at this situation, I kind of have to think, well, Google is obviously doing this to say, okay, look at all these cool things that you can get and use our services. But there's still some really cool things on Android that you are missing, such as the devices, the Play Store, which some may say is better or some may say is worse. But there are definitely still some things that are going to sway people towards Android. For me, it's the devices and the customization, like I said. But you have to wonder, if people just use Gmail and they use Google Plus and Google Now and Maps, and they really like the iPhone, why would they switch? So please let me know what you guys think. If you switch from iOS to Android, why did you do that? If you were thinking of switching but you stayed with iOS, why did you do that as well? Let me know, because I'd like to know if this situation is going to sway anybody. iOS now has a lot of Google features. Is that going to make you stick with iOS, or are you going to switch to Android? This is Barry from Copper vs Glass, and I'll catch you guys later.